All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to a special live edition of Bearded Fishing Chats. Hey, I hope you guys are all doing excellent on this Thursday night. Again, I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in here tonight. As usual, we'll give people a few minutes to get in here. Got some great topics tonight. As always, we got walleye fishing at night, you guys. Extremely underrated. If you're not doing it, you're missing out. Please take advantage of that while you can. We're going to talk about some late summer bass fishing tips, which obviously now we're here in the late summertime, so it's time to get the ball rolling on those late summer bass fishing trips to catch you some big ones. We'll help you out with that tonight, and of course, we'll talk about fall bass fishing and fall walleye fishing. So obviously, you guys, we got a lot of good things going on tonight. Hope everybody's doing well. Like I said, I'll get the ball rolling here at about the 5 minute mark. We'll let a few people get in. Please hit the thumbs up button. Give this video a like. Please subscribe if you have not. And anybody who tunes in tonight, I really appreciate it. It's good to have all you guys here as always. Had fun with the last two chats that we did, some live chats. Like I said, always enjoy chatting with you guys and getting to know the audience and giving some good fishing tips as always. So, couple of housekeeping rules. Keep it classy in the chats. If you're going to disagree, just don't be a jerk. Keep it classy. But as always, feel free to say what you'd like. Then, like I said, I'll start here at about the 5 minute mark and we'll get the ball rolling. So, like I said, a couple of announcements to make. So, my cousin Austin, who is a fly fishing guide out in Utah, is going to be on the show here pretty soon. We're just trying to confirm a date and time, just trying to make sure that we can coordinate the time. For all those of you guys that like trout fishing and fly fishing, this man really knows what he's talking about. This man knows exactly what he's doing. So, all you guys that like fly fishing and trout fishing, I'm looking forward to that show. Really anxious to see what that brings about. I think you guys will get a lot of value from it. I got a few other guests coming up on the show that have been confirmed, so definitely stay tuned for that. And I am going to have some fall fishing footage coming up here pretty soon in the coming months. So definitely please stay tuned for that. And like I said, you guys, we'll give it till about the 5 minute mark here. We'll get the ball rolling. I'd also like to thank everybody who is going live with me tonight on Facebook. As always, thank you guys for joining me. I appreciate it. Please feel free to share this video right now and let people know that I'm going live. I'd love to get a few people in the chat tonight. Like I said, I'm always down for a good conversation with the fans here, always making it happen, always keeping it classy. That's how we roll here, folks. So like I said, we'll give it about another minute and a half here, and then I'll get the ball rolling on this, and we'll make it happen. So like I said, I'm going to be doing some fall fishing videos here pretty soon. Some cold water species, hopefully some trout fishing too on there. Maybe some fall bass fishing, maybe even some lake trout and salmon. Who knows? But the fact is, we are going to get the ball rolling on that here pretty soon. I know you guys have seen me catch some walleye on this channel. You've seen some bass, some catfish in my shorts too. If you guys have liked that, that's great. But like I said, I like to keep it pretty diverse on this channel. So we're definitely excited about that. And yeah, let's definitely get the ball rolling here. All right, you guys. So obviously it's late summertime right now, you guys. It's hot out, depending on where you are in the country, and the fish are likely going to be scattered out, but a lot of the bigger bass are more than likely going to be deep at a certain part of the day. So when it comes to summertime bass fishing, so there's different patterns throughout the day that I like to use. So first thing I like to do in the morning, you guys, is I like to target the top water fish. Targeting top water bass early in the morning in the summertime. Usually I'm out at the lake by about 5 a.m. I'm usually out there casting, making it happen. But what I'm looking for is I'm looking for shorelines, I'm looking for docks, and I'm looking particularly for shorelines right near docks. And I'm just casting the popper and making it happen that way. So you guys, one thing that I like to do is I like to use Rapala poppers. Those are one of my favorite ones. And what I like to do is I like to do a pop, pop, pop technique. So basically like 3 pops and a pause. That usually works pretty well for those bass first thing in the morning. And believe it or not, I also like to use poppers at night too. Those are very effective. But for the sake of this right now, what we'll do is we'll just we'll stick to the summertime uh, stuff for the time being here. So um, if not poppers, you guys. So if poppers are not working, what I do like to do is I like to use a 1/4 ounce buzz bait, and kind of the same type of deal. So I'll be about 50 or so feet away from a dock, and I'll cast towards that dock, and I'll bring it back towards the canoe, the boat, the kayak, or whatever I'm using that day. And that really seems to work. And what I like to do is um, I really like to do a pattern where if I see a dock, for example, I'm casting to the left of it, I'm casting to the center of it, and I'm casting to the right of it. And I'm basically repeating that pattern over and over and over again. So this way that fish is seeing the buzz bait from all angles. Now with the popper, like I said, I'll usually cast it on a straight line and just pop it about 3 times, pause, pop it 3 times, pause. But those are really good effective summertime tactics for largemouth bass, especially early in the morning. Because, like I said, it's going to come in patterns. It's going to come for types of day, for times of day where you're going to need to change up your patterns. So we'll get into that. But definitely early morning, I'm a big fan of top water. I think top water works really well. It's very hard to lose when it comes to that. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And guys, we got my main man, Adrian, in here. Appreciate having you tonight, brother. Always good to see you in here. The weather is changing, and now it's time for new fishing tips. Yes, yep, absolutely, man. There's definitely a change in the weather right now. We definitely want to get those tips going to keep people catching fish, man. That's one of the goals of the channel. Hey, buddy, I appreciate you being here as always. So, all right. So when it comes to mid-morning bass, now where the water heats up a little bit, I like to use Senkos, and I like to use a pretty decent hook on those Senkos. So a bigger size hook, and I like to hook it weedless, and I like to hook the bullet weight on the very end of it. And what I'm looking for, so as the water warms up, you guys, I'm looking to be right near drop-offs. So really at that time in the morning, I have a lot of luck between 8 to 10 foot of water. That seems to be the hot spot for me for them. So I like to use Senkos, and really I like to bounce it off the bottom as much as I can. And like I said, I like to keep it on the drop offs. So I'll bounce it off the bottom, and I'll just kind of slowly drag it towards the boat, let it pause, and kind of repeat that pattern back and forth. And throughout all this, you guys, in the summertime, I usually use 10-pound test. I don't go super heavy on my line. To be honest with you, like some people like to use 12-pound tests and bigger. I like to use 10-pound tests. I think it casts just as good. I think you can get a lot of distance, and as well, the action doesn't get taken off the bait at the same time. So those are definitely things to consider. Now, when you're talking like late morning, early afternoon, now in the summertime, this is where it really starts to heat up. The water really starts to heat up. Now, I have my list here, my notes here, so I can get very specific with you guys about this, because specifics matter when it comes to fishing, you guys, especially with certain species. So if I'm going to use something that's going to get those bass once they're in deeper water, when the water's starting to heat up, when the sun's coming up a little higher, and it becomes a little bit more difficult, I'm a huge fan of the Strike King XD crankbait. And I love those deep diving crankbaits, you guys. And those never seem to fail me, because when those fish are going to be in between 10 to 20 foot of water, like I said, again, I'm focusing close to the drop-offs. So really, my canoe, my boat, my kayak is sitting usually in about 5 to 8 foot of water, but realistically, I'm casting anywhere between 12 to 20 foot of water. That's usually my golden rule. And when I'm doing that, like I said, I'm using a deep diving crankbait. Strike King 6XD crankbaits are one of my favorites. And like I said, I love nailing them off the drop-offs. It's really just a blast. And like I said, it's more of a fast action type of deal. So if you can do that consistently, and I kind of use the same pattern as I was talking about from the docks. So what I'm doing is I take one cast to the left, one cast to the middle, one cast to the right, and I repeat that over and over again. This way, so I'm covering a really good area all at the same time. Now, when it comes to nighttime fishing for bass, nighttime fishing can be really exciting. And, whether it's largemouth or smallmouth bass, I'm going back to the popper. And I mentioned I like the Rapala popper that I use in the morning. I like using that same thing at night, except I'm fishing probably just a little bit deeper. I'm probably fishing probably about 8 to 10 foot of water, and that seems to work really, really well. Now, at night, I will use that technique I'm telling you about. So left, center, and right. And I'll use that same popping technique as I do in the morning. So I'll pop it 3 times, pause it, and then that fish usually is ready to strike. So, and realistically, you guys, those are the best bets for bass fishing in the summertime. And these have worked consistently for me all over the country that I fished. And honestly, you really can't go wrong with those types of baits. And like I said, I don't go overboard. 10-pound test usually does me pretty good. I usually use like a medium action, 6'6" rod. Nothing super fancy. I just kind of keep it easy. Now, speaking of bass fishing, so we're almost in the fall, you guys. Now, fall time bass fishing, the game changes quite a bit. Now, this is fall time bass fishing when the water gets cold. And when the water cools down, like I said, the game's going to change a little bit. And I believe that, Adrian mentioned too, he's like, what do we need to know most about this upcoming season of fishing? It's almost fall. Yes, that's exactly what I was going to get into, bro. So, fall time bass fishing is really great because the bass are likely going to be a lot more shallow. So fall time fishing is, now that's not to say that they can't go deep in the fall, because they do, but a really productive thing to do in the fall is to find the bait fish. And if you can find the bait fish, you can likely find the bass very, very close by. And what I like to do is I like to locate them in the shallow water. And my first bait is a spinner bait. Obviously, I like to use a 1/4 ounce spinner bait. That seems to be my go-to. And I'll use that usually on a spinning rod, believe it or not. And I seem to have very good luck. So if I'm on a fall day and it's a little bit windy, like I said, I'm targeting the shorelines, but my watercraft is going to be about 50 foot off the shoreline. The wind's blowing to my back and I'm casting away from me. So what I'll do is at the same time, I like to find underwater vegetation too. And I like to cast kind of parallel to it. So once I've casted parallel to it, I'll bring it back to the boat. And again, I absolutely love that technique, the left, center, and right technique. I'm a big fan of that. I don't know if anybody created that. I think I heard Jimmy Houston might have talked about that back in the day, but I've always been a big fan of that. So that's what I like to do when it comes to that. I really like to utilize that technique. Now, the chatterbait, you guys, is probably the best fall fishing bass bait that there is out there. Now, the old school method of chatterbaits is the Z-Man chatterbait. So that's the original chatterbait, you guys. I would highly recommend chatterbait fishing in the fall. But what you're going to want to do with a chatterbait is you're going to want a fast action rod, medium heavy rod. And like I said, it's a great shallow water bait that you can utilize sort of the same way as you could with a spinner bait. So realistically, like my go-to in the fall when I'm fishing shallow water, when it's a little bit windy, is the spinner bait. And then, like I said, the chatterbait is my next go-to bait. All this can be done in shallow water. And I mean, I'm talking, anywhere between 5 to 8 foot of water. It's always a go-to. It's always something good that I like to utilize when I'm out there bass fishing. So that's definitely something that I always enjoy doing. And to me, that's really fall bass fishing in a nutshell. Now, one final bait that you can use in the fall, particularly when it's calm out. And by the way, you guys, I also find that chatterbaits are very great later in the day. I really do find that that's a great bait to use later in the day. In the fall, like just before sunset, and in all honesty, you really can't go wrong with it. It's a great bait. But if you happen to get a calm day in the fall, something I've really gotten used to in the fall is buzz baits. I really do like buzz baits. And again, same type of deal. What I'm looking for is I'm looking for bait fish of any sorts. So if it depends on what the lake has for bait fish. So if you're looking at alewife, for instance, or just minnows or whatever the bait is, you got to find them and you have to locate them. And the second that you find them in the shallow water, there's probably a good chance that the bass are not very far behind them. So that's something to keep in mind. You've got to find the bait fish and then you'll find the bass. And the buzz baits are just casting, reeling, casting, reeling. And it makes that noise on top of the water that provokes the strike. And again, that is a good go-to bait if all else fails. So basically, you got your chatter baits in the fall, you have your buzz baits, and you have your spinner baits. And in my opinion, if you can't catch a fish with either of those three baits, or if all three of those fail, folks, there might be something wrong with the universe. So definitely keep that in mind. Those are definitely some really good fall fishing baits. Now, very interesting, folks. Fall walleye fishing. Definitely something that I am a huge fan of. If you have not gone walleye fishing in the fall, you might be missing out at life, and I feel very bad. So, that in mind, you guys. So, I got my fiance in the chat. Hey, babe. Yes, Alabama rigs. Yes, that's going to have to be a whole other episode because, yes, I am a big fan of the Alabama rigs. And my mom's in the chat. Mom, how are you? And I still got Adrian here in the chat. Thank you, sir. Happy to see everybody here as always. All right, so Alabama rigs. Yes, that will definitely be for another episode. But yes, I do love those Alabama rigs. So fall fishing for walleye is a very interesting predicament. Very, very, very interesting predicament for walleye. So walleye fishing in the fall, I really like jigs as far as that goes. And realistically, one of my favorite jigs, believe it or not, is the Rapala walleye jigs that you can get while you're ice fishing. So I think that they call them, so I think that they're sort of like, that they compare them to like airplane jigs. And I just really like them. It's a flexible, versatile, diverse bait where you mark them on your fish finder, jig it, and in all honesty, you guys, the second that they bite those, you'll know it. It's a really hard, impulsive bite. It's a lot of fun. So I would highly recommend that. And then I had a few on my list here. I got a list here. So another thing that people like to do is they like to pitch. So, and what I mean by pitch is just a quick little short cast into the schools of walleye, and then you'll just reel it, bump it, and what actually works too is that some of the times when you're jigging these, so you have a jig head that you can use, and then you have a live minnow that you can put on the end of it. And in all honesty, you hook it right through the mouth, you cast it right into the school of walleye, and then like I said, what you want to do is you want to rip it a little bit while keeping slack on your line. That's kind of the key when it comes to it. Usually with jigging, like especially if you're vertical jigging, it's sort of different because you can leave some slack, but you also want to leave it tight kind of at the same time, if that makes sense. But when you're pitching with jigs, and when you're pitching with a jig that has a minnow on the end of it, you want to just kind of do like a little bit of a rip sort of technique while keeping the slack in it. And then, like I said, you'll feel that tug once the walleye come in. So, and usually too, you can do that in shallow water in the fall. But when it comes to things like vertical jigging, so I really do like vertical jigging in the fall. I actually feel like vertical jigging works better for me than that pitching technique that I'm telling you about. But the pitching technique is still a very positive technique. I've definitely caught a lot of walleye doing it before. I'd highly recommend it, but I definitely like vertical jigging just a little bit better. And I like vertical jigging in the deep water on like steep breaks in deeper water. And then, like I said, I'll use a variety of stuff that'll work, mostly those Rapalas, and those are really the way to go as far as that goes. So, yes, yep. Rapalas are the way to go. It is one of my favorites. It's old school bait, but it's good stuff. It's very, very good stuff. All right. So, guys, I'm probably going to stay on here for another 15, 20 minutes here. So walleye fishing, while we're on the topic of walleye fishing at night is severely underrated. I talked about this on my Instagram live here a couple weeks ago. And what was interesting is that I find that not enough people fish for walleye at night. Like, people will go trolling during the day. Fine. It's a great tactic. Hey, it's probably one of the better well-known walleye tactics. But when it comes to nighttime walleye fishing, it can be as simple as a crankbait that matches the bait that the walleye are after. So if you have a lake that has alewife in it, you're going to want to find a crankbait that matches the alewife. If you got things with related to shad and just any type of bait fish that the walleye might go after in the lake, if you could mimic that in shallow water, especially during the spawn in the springtime, you can catch yourself some massive walleye in some very, very shallow water. But I think my golden rule with fishing nights for walleye, I really like to use big crankbaits, and especially where like walleye will ambush minnows and bait fish in shallow water from deep water. So definitely targeting drop-offs. It sort of reminds me of like bass fishing in the late summertime where, like I said, I'm looking for drop-offs. So my watercraft is between 5 to 7 foot of water, but I'm casting into 15 foot of water. So I'm making it happen that way. So I would definitely recommend it. I use that same Strike King XD crankbait for walleye that I do for bass in the summertime. And in all honesty, you guys, it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. You really can't go wrong with that. And yeah, so that's pretty much my take on that. Mike, good to see you here, man. Thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate it. Good to see you here. All right. So a few announcements here coming up, folks. Like I said, my cousin Austin is going to be on the show here pretty soon. He's a fly fishing guide out in Utah. You guys will really love his stuff. He's great at fly fishing techniques. He's great at trout fishing. He really knows his stuff. He's a really fantastic fisherman. He knows how to make it happen. So if you guys like trout, if you guys like salmon, if you guys like cold water fish species, he's really the guy to go to. He loves his fly fishing stuff. And he's a good bass fisherman too, but he's going to really talk to us about fly fishing stuff, things related to that, and he can tell you about it all. So I'm excited to have him on. That date is to be continued. I do have a few other confirmed guests coming on here pretty soon. But in all honesty, though, you guys, I'm planning on having some even bigger guests coming up here this year. I'm planning to grow the channel a little bit more. As always, I do appreciate the support. What are some good pulls for walleye? St. Croix rods. I swear by those. Those are honest to God, anything that St. Croix puts out, I absolutely love it. So honestly, those would be my favorite St. Croix walleye rods. Shields also. Shields Sporting Goods has a really good series of rods too that go very well for walleye. So anything to do with St. Croix or Shields, I'm behind it. All right, you guys. So I am going to wrap it up there tonight. It was good to see everybody this evening. Like I said, if you have not subscribed yet to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Please share this video with people that you know who might be interested in fishing. Always a pleasure to see everybody, and I will catch you in the next one.